Miniclip, first launched on the 30th of March 2001, has become known for games like 8-Ball Pool, Raft Wars, as well as some of my personal favourites like Skywire, Acid Factory, and of course Club Penguin. But it has also become synonymous with a host of edgy games. Back in the early 2000s when Miniclip launched, the internet existed in much more of a nebulous Wild West era than what we have today. The online world in general felt far less interconnected and safe, so it often felt like exploring a scary but exciting new frontier. But with this Wild West era, oftentimes content would stray into being overly edgy or dramatic in order to garner clicks and online attention. So today I want to reopen those nostalgic valves and let some of your more edgy childhood memories come flooding back. But if you were too young to have experienced Miniclip in its prime, well, buckle up for some hardcore angst and early 2000s edge. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Factor 75. Now, nutrition and fitness is something I take very seriously, but being busy making videos for you guys means I don't always have the time to make anything other than utter slop and slabs of luminous green jelly. Thankfully, Factor 75 swooped in by offering a range of genuinely delicious, chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals. Their range of meals are suited to your diet, whether you're keto, vegan, vegetarian, or have any other specific dietary needs. Best of all, they're never from frozen and are completely stress-free, as you know they're tailored to be healthy and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Or if you're just more peckish, Factor 75 also offers snacks, breakfasts, smoothies, and other light nibbles. There's something for everyone. So say goodbye to grocery shopping, meal prepping, washing up, and the usual gruel and slop you're used to. Help support the channel and your busy lifestyle by using my link in the description or pinned comment, and use code SLIPPINFEB50 to get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor box. But back to the video. Skull Kid was perhaps one of the earliest and most well-known edgy games on the site. First being uploaded to Newgrounds on the 14th of September 2002, the game quickly made its way to other platforms like Miniclip. I remember always seeing it being advertised on the front page of Miniclip, which is largely why my brother and I spent so much time playing it. You played as the titular Skull Kid, wielding a chainsaw as you carved your way through a passive crowd of office workers with surprisingly little resistance. That was until you reached the second floor, at which point you were armed with a handgun and had to make use of cover and timed shots to take out a room full of armed office workers. After picking each one of the workers off, you could then proceed to the third and final floor. Now naturally you'd expect that the gameplay would continue to evolve from here, perhaps by being armed with an automatic weapon as you take out some even tougher foes, but somewhat underwhelmingly, there's only a single boss NPC, which is a term I use very loosely, as he acts much more like a real-world office boss than that of a video game boss. By that I mean that instead of having a big health bar and putting up a tough fight, he just lets you chainsaw through him. While it's one of the tamer entries on this list, I remember it being my entry point into the world of edgy games. Even at the time I remember thinking it didn't seem really too bad, but that being said, it did creep me out a little bit. And apparently from what I could find online, hiding the game from your parents was a pretty universal experience. Dude, holy shit, I don't even remember what happens in this game, but I 100% remember playing it when my mum wasn't round. It was one of those games firmly for when my parents were either outside of the house or were asleep. I felt like if I was caught playing this, then my parents would have rushed me off to the gallows and that would have been the end of me. I knew I really shouldn't have been playing it, but maybe that's what made it so much fun. Short, sweet, and memorable. And surprisingly, not the only Chainsaw Massacre game to be featured on the site. There were also some absolute classics, such as the very subtly named Chainsaw the Children. Again, it was a very different era.
I need gas! More gas! I'll just kill this kid. Die! Come on!
Sift Heads is a product very reminiscent of its time, back when, for some reason, badass freaking epic stick figures were everywhere, normally dressed as katana-wielding ninjas for some reason. This was a bit of a later addition to Miniclip, first being uploaded to the site on the 7th of March 2006. But despite its simple look, the game actually featured a ridiculously dramatic narrative, which continued into later editions in the series. You played as Vinny, an assassin working for the Mafia, as you carried out various tasks and hits. The levels were centered around various assassination missions like sniping specific targets, poker shootouts, shooting galleries, and even a level where you have to play as a baby and shoot your own cat. As I said, very edgy. Unlike what it feels like we have online today, where everything's ironic or insincere to some degree, Sift Heads took itself very seriously. I imagine the probably teenage creator imagined this is what Mafia life was like. It's all very badass flaming skulls, but that was just the culture at the time. If it was made today, I wouldn't be surprised if the wider internet community mocked it out of existence for its cheesy juxtaposition between the gritty, dark narrative and its absurd, cartoony stick figure design. Very cringy stuff, so let's just move on. The torture game. Where to begin? This is simultaneously the game that inspired me to make this video in the first place, as well as the one that discouraged me from making it out of fear of what YouTube might do to me. Now, if Skull Kid was the game my brother and I would hide from our parents, the torture game is the one I would hide from even my brother or friends. Truth be told, I always felt truly awful for playing it, but my morbid curiosity always got the better of me. Maybe it's not something crazy compared to what we're used to on the internet these days, but back then as a child it felt just creepy in terms of its tone and atmosphere, and obviously the gameplay. As you might expect, the game involves subjecting a presumably less than willing participant to a smorgasbord of unpleasant tools, from spikes and ropes to guns and even paint for some reason, which I always felt was a weird but fun addition to the game. Sometimes I would sit awake at night messing around on this game, and as mentioned before, I'd feel truly horrible the whole time. The other games on this list I saw mainly as just some edgy fun, but this game genuinely gave me an unpleasant vibe. I can't possibly wonder why. Unsurprisingly, it's not a sentiment I alone struggled with. Being the most edgy game on this list by far, it comes with the territory that this game was also the most heavily scrutinized and controversial. Outlets such as NBC News were at the forefront of this outrage, condemning the game for its sick nature. So sick, in fact, they had to say it 3 times. The developer, 19-year-old Carl Haverman from Johannesburg, South Africa, defended his game as little more than simple and pointless entertainment. Despite this, there were those who understandably claimed that the game made them feel nauseous and guilty. However, with over 200,000 plays and a 9.3 out of 10 rating, it seems I wasn't the only one to feel a morbid curiosity towards the game. But what do you think? Do you see it as just simple fun, or a symptom of something a little more sinister and potentially unnerving? Either way, it raises the question of how impactful games like these were on the kind of impressionable young minds prevalent on Miniclip at the time. After all, I dabbled with it a couple of times, and I'd say I turned out normal. What do you think? Anyway, where were we? Games like Whack Your Boss shared similar gameplay elements from the Torture game, albeit with a much more cartoony, light-hearted tone. One of the most prevalent was Whack Your Boss, which released in 2005. The gameplay revolved around finding the 16 secret ways to whack your boss, such as throwing him out of a window or enthusiastically giving him a drink from the water cooler. There's not much to say about Whack Your Boss that hasn't already been said for edgier counterparts on this list, but that's not to say it didn't also face its share of controversy, as many viewed it as being overly edgy or encouraging workplace violence. However, it's a bit more apparent that the game was developed as a form of tongue-in-cheek stress relief, rather than anything with some kind of sinister intention. Because of this, its cartoony style and funny animations earned it some more mainstream attention from creators such as KSI and Markiplier, back in an era when Flash games were very popular on YouTube. Largely, it was seen as funny rather than outright edgy, but its popularity is what earns it a place on this list. By 2011, it had earned over 1.7 million plays, sparking infamous sequels such as Whack Your Ex, and a spectrum of themed variants such as Whack Your Boss Cartoonland and Whack Your Boss Fantasy Edition, truly milking the IP for all it's worth. A couple of games I quickly want to touch on are Dark Cut and its sequel, both of which released within the same year of 2007. Now, there's not a whole ton I want to expand on with these games, but I just felt like including them to showcase some of the diversity present on the site at the time. The gameplay involves the player taking on the role of a physician as you act out a range of medieval-themed operations, from removing arrows on legs to placing leeches on cuts, and even dispatching a vampire. It's not the most gory or interesting on this list, but the hands-on, visceral gameplay garnered it over 2.6 million plays. It's not one I personally remember playing, at least not frequently, but considering its popularity, it made sense to include it. Maybe you played it, maybe you didn't, I don't know. Now, I've saved the best till last. This game was truly freaking twisted. I mean, where to start? Just look at these little hellspawn. And these things. What the fuck are these things? But I'm just kidding. We like to joke around here on this channel, plus I needed to bulk out the runtime a little bit. But seriously though, I've got to get back to playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure, and conveniently forgetting to file my taxes. So that's pretty much all I've got for today's video. There were more games I would have liked to feature on this list, like Interactive Buddy, a personal favourite of mine, but I didn't want to make this video too long and overblown. Mostly I just wanted to spark some discussion about these games, because I feel like some of them have been eating away at my soul for far too long, and if I have to remember stuff like this, then so do you. One thing is for sure, with a predominantly child-based audience, there was no shortage of appetite for edgy games, and also no shortage of those willing to supply said edgy games. As I've mentioned, the main question is whether these games were truly impactful and should have been more heavily moderated by the Miniclip staff, or if they were just a bit of harmless fun, made to appease and entertain naturally curious teenage minds. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. But other than that, that really is all I have for today. Well, as always, thank you for watching. Over and out, gamers. Kablam!